Hello there. In this video I'm going to show you how you can make a personalised name ring, and I'm going to make sort of three different examples of it, so 1, 2 and 3 here. But in the process of doing that you could actually do it without the rings on the outside. So this ring on the right here is just a copy of this one, but with a ring at the top and the bottom, so you could open it up if you wanted to. Now I'm going to use the application Fluid Designer for 3D printing, and the first thing I'm going to do, if I just click on Group Library here, it just refreshes this file list here. I'm going to use the Harrington fonts. There are other fonts available, but I'm going to use Harrington fonts just to spell out my name, Paul. And I'm also going to use, if I go to the rings folder and just go to the very top here, I'm going to use this basic all UK ring sizes object, which is available free when you download Fluid Designer for 3D printing. So if I just drag and drop that onto the workspace, now this is a parametric smart object, and the default size, the default object is a ring size 15.09 millimeters, as it says in the outline of the panel over here. Now, I'm not going to use that one. Now the thing to do first of all is to remove the bevel object. So you go to the properties panel, go to curve and remove that bevel object, otherwise you'll end up printing that one as well. So I'm now going to hide that one, and I'm going to choose a new UK ring size, and I'm going to choose UKP plus 18.14. So that's how you can change the ring size. And if I just view that from the front, and just I'll just switch on screencast keys. Actually, I just scroll backwards until I get my centimetre grid here. I'm going to make a couple of duplicates of that, so I go to Tools, Objects, Tools and Duplicate, and if I just move the mouse upwards I can place one there. And if I go to Tools, Object, Tools and Duplicate and I just move the mouse down, I can place another ring at the bottom. So I've just duplicated the original object. And again, if we just double check over here in the outliner panel, that's the original object, P plus 18.14. We've got 001 at the top and 002 at the bottom. It is important you know which one is which and you remember which one is which. Now if I switch to top view, and I'm just scrolling the center mouse button to zoom in, I'm going to write the, actually no, I want to zoom out. I want to work with the centimetre grid. So I'm going to spell my name Paul now. So I need to go to File and Append. And in Fluid Designer we always go up through the menu system and look for the Groups folder. And these are all the patterns and files that are on the system. And I want alphabet font, and I'm going to start off with a font P. I want Object and Harrington font P. So there's the letter P, first letter of my name. And now I'm going to append and just go up through the menu system. Now we're in Harrington fonts already, so I can just select A. It's always the object that we want to append from the library. And what I find is by working at this grid scale, centimetres, I can just position it there very easily. So File and Append. I want a U now. Object, Harrington font U. Make sure you click on the U because it's not selected initially, and I just move it a couple of spaces to the right, and again go up through the menu system, and I want an L, Harrington font L, and append that from the library and just move it 2 units across. Now here you can see that it's not quite, the L's not quite in a very good position, but when I zoom in I can just pull it down like that, and you could in fact play around with these objects, moving them up and down to locate them, because really we want a nice smooth line at the top and the bottom. But I won't do that in this instance. Now these are all 4 different objects at the moment, but I can join them together, so I just hold down the Shift key on the keyboard, highlight all 4 objects, go to Tools, Object, Tools and join them together. Now the center of these objects is here. I want it at the center of the actual object itself. So if I go to Tools, Object, Tools and set the origin to the geometry, so that's moved the origin there. Now I'm going to move this back to the center of my screen, and I can do that by doing cursor snap selection to cursor. So we're just working from the origin. Now I want 2 copies of the name Paul because it's quite a short name. So if I just go to modifiers panel, and if I just create an array modifier, you'll see I get a second version there, but there's a gap at the moment. So if I just change the relative offset to 0.9, I get an overlap there, which is how I'm going to leave it. Now what I want to do is I need to wrap this word Paul around my UK size P plus object there. So if I just go to view and top view again, so I'm going to wrap that around this yellow curve. In order to do that, first thing I want to do is to rotate it about the x-axis. So if I do R on the keyboard, X on the keyboard to limit the rotation to the x-axis and 90. I had the wrong object highlighted there. Let me just do Control Z. I had the UK P plus circle highlighted. I need Paul highlighted. Let me do that again. So it's rotate x-axis 90 degrees. So that's brought it up there because we're going to wrap it around that circle, remember. Now, the view I'm in at the moment, I know that when I wrap this around, it will be back to front. So I also want to rotate it about the z-axis. So if I do R, Z 180 degrees, that just flips it all the way around there. And I know now that when I wrap this around the curve, it will flip it again and I'll be able to read it properly. So as an array modifier with Paul highlighted, I need to select a curve modifier, and the curve that I want is UKP plus 18.14, and that will wrap Paul around that object. That's the center circle that you can see on the screen at the moment. So I just need to go past all these cross-section objects. So we're UK size here, and I want P plus. Now there are several P pluses, one's at the top, one's at the bottom, I want the middle one. And you can see there as we do that, the word Paul is in view now. Now it is overlapping at the moment, so what I need to do is I want to scale it down a little bit so I can create a gap between the 2 words. So we can scale in Fluid Designer by pressing S on the keyboard and just moving towards the center of the screen. 1 and yeah, I'm going to do it at 0.7. If you look at the top of the screen there, you can see the scale factor is 0.7. Now whenever you scale in Fluid Designer, you must always do Control A and apply the scale, and notice the thickness will reformat, and that's really important in Fluid Designer. So what I've done is I've left a gap here. Now I've done that just in case you wanted to print this without a ring at the top and the bottom. You could in fact probably print that in steel and it would work perfectly fine. However, there is an issue here. If you look, the actual rings are going through the center of the object here. So the rings here are sized to 18.14, but the surface of this object is inside that. So we need to reformat that. But before I do that, because this is a parametric smart object, I'm actually going to change the thickness of this. I'm going to thin it down a bit. So if we go to the properties panel, we can see at the moment that the cross section that's applied to this object is 1 millimeter by 2 millimeters deep. I'm going to change that to 1 by 1, and you'll see the thickness change. And say this is a parametric smart object, so we can change the thickness at any point. So again, if I just go to view and top view, if we just zoom in there, this thin grey line here is actually my UK size. My object is still on the inside of it. Now to fix that, what we do is we just press the tab key on the keyboard, and essentially what we want to do is to highlight all of the object, and we can press A on the keyboard. A is to select all the control points, and in essence what I want to do is I want to line up the bottom of this object with the x-axis. Now this is the Y direction at the moment, but if I change Y over here, that won't work, in fact. And I can test that if I just drag this object up, and I want to drag it up so that the bottom touches the x-axis. I can't do that at the moment because the snap is on, but the value that's changing over here is the Z, and that's because we've rotated it. So if I just move the Z back down to 0.5, because this is 1 millimeter thick, I actually needed to just move it half of that distance. So that's in line with the x-axis now, and when I press the tab key to come out of edit mode, what you will find is that the object now is in line with the circles that are going around the inside of the object now. And that's what you need when you're 3D printing. Okay, so say we could print this as a ring without any tops to it, but I'm going to actually apply a ring at the top and a ring at the bottom now. So yeah, sorry, I need to switch to front view. So because I've applied a thickness of 1 by 1 on this, I'm going to apply a thickness of 1 by 1 on the top one, and a thickness of 1 by 1 on the bottom ring. And I now need to just position this, so 1, 2, if I pull it up 3 units there, and if I pull it down 1, 2, 3 units at the top, I've pretty much created my ring. Now the only thing that I perhaps want to change, I could bring this bit up a little bit, the P, so that it's inside the ring there rather than sticking through. Yeah, so I'm going to do it like that. I mean, there's different ways that you can actually fix this. So if I go to view and front view, if I press the tab key to go into edit mode, so I'm looking at Paul from the back now, I actually just need to move this bit of the object up. So press A on the keyboard to deselect all the control points, and if you press B on the keyboard you can highlight just those control points. I need to switch off the snap here because I want fine control, and so I just pull that up a little bit. So I'm looking for it to be inside the ring here. Now as I look along, there are some other bits here that are not quite touching the ring. So I've got these control points highlighted at the moment. So if I press A to deselect that, if I press B on the keyboard for box select again, and if I just highlight those control points, I can pull these bits down so that they will now be crossing the bottom of the ring there. A to deselect, and again I could do the same at the top here. I could just select those points there and just drag them up slightly so that they are touching the ring, and then A to deselect. So when I look now, I've got the ring overlapping. I've got no bits sticking out at the top and the bottom, so I should be okay there. Now, if you're looking carefully here, there are some weird things going on, some weird geometry here, and that's because we've wrapped the object around this circle. So in the L there, I need to go in and fix this. So if I press the tab key, I'm going to view from the back this time so I can see the lettering properly. So my issue is down here, look. And what it is the way these control points are positioned. So what we generally find is that if we press X on the key, highlight one control point and press X on the keyboard and delete it, you can see that it's fixed that problem. It's just things are wrapping in on themselves there. And there's another one up here as well, look. So if I select that control point, X, and delete, it will sort that out. Now it's actually sorted it out but created another problem over here. But perhaps if I pull that one across a little bit, and perhaps if I delete that one, that will sort it out better. Now what I do find generally is that you can in a way ignore that, a lot of those issues, because Netfab will sort them out for you. So ones like that, not quite as drastic. But again, I could go in there and just fix that if I view it from the back. go into the L. So you can see there's a bit of an issue here. So if I perhaps delete that control point there, perhaps delete that one as well. So that just changes the profile of the L a little bit. But I can assure you that if you do just go to NetFab, this is probably going to be okay. Now I'm just going to save this, or use save as I should say. Never use save in Fluid Designer. And I'm just going to call it ring 01 at the moment. Now if we wanted to 3D print this, what we need to do is to convert it to a mesh. So I go Tools, Object Tools, convert the pole to a mesh, highlight the ring at the top, go to Tools, Object Tools, and convert that to a mesh. I obviously didn't get the ring highlighted. Tools, Object Tools, convert to a mesh. I need to do the ring at the top still. Tools, Object Tools, convert to a mesh. Now I've got the ring at the top highlighted. If I hold down the Shift key, highlight the ring at the bottom, and then highlight pole, that's the bit in the middle, and just go to Tools, Object Tools, and Join. What I then need to do is to export that. Go to File and export it as an OBJ file, and then run that through NetFab. Now if I just do Control Z and Control Z and just return to my curves here. Okay, so it's all back as curves now. If I look at this object, if I go to View and Front View and just press Home, if I measure the height of this, that is currently about 15 millimeters. If you wanted a thinner ring than that, that's perfectly possible. So if you highlight pole, because this is a parametric smart object, if I press S on the keyboard for scale, and if I limit my scale to the Z axis, I can just thin it down in the Z direction there, and click. And always remember to do Control A and apply the scale. And then if I just move this ring in a couple of places, I actually have the snap off there. Let me just switch the snap back on so I know it's even. 1, 2 places, 2 millimeters. Okay, so I could make the ring thinner like that, and because this is a parametric smart object, we've got no problems as long as you do Control A and apply the scale. So you could create a second ring there that's actually quite a bit thinner than the first one. And again, change that to a mesh and then export it as an OBJ file. Now the third ring that I'm going to create, if I go back to the original one, is this one here. And what I'm going to do this time is I'm actually going to delete the ring at the bottom. Because of the tilt that I'm going to put on it, I'm going to use a mirror command to actually do that. Now, what are we going to do here? Well, first of all, let me just okay, yeah, all right, so let me just, whoops. Okay, so the first thing that I want to do is I want to actually select the object which is UKP plus 18.14. So that's the circle in the middle, the original one, which Paul is wrapped around. And what I want to do there is I want to press the tab key to go into edit mode. Now in this corner here, where the word Paul starts, the other corner is where the Paul starts on the other side. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just select one control point in the corner, and I'm going to change this radius value over here, and I'm going to type in a value of 2. And you can see what that does is it thickens up at that point. Now what I'm then going to do is to select the control point there and hold down the Shift key and select that control point. So I've selected these two control points. They're the first two away from this corner. and I'm going to type in a value of 1.5 this time. In other words, not quite as much. And then I'm going to select the control point in that corner and hold down the shift key and select the other corner. So I started in this corner with the first point, then I did these 2 points. Now I'm going to do these two, and I'm going to do those at 1.25. And so you can see I'm tapering the word Paul. Now if I press the tab key to come out of edit mode, I want to do the same thing now with UKP plus 001, which is the ring at the top. And I want to apply the same numbers here for uniformity. So if I press the tab key, so in this corner here where Paul is, I'm going to set that value at 2, like I did with the other one. Then I'm going to select this control point and hold down shift and select this one, so it's these two. And I'm going to do 1.5 as I did before. And then finally I'm going to select that corner and do 1.25. So I'm just trying to keep it all even. And alright, so what I now need to do is to kind of tilt the Paul. And the way I'm going to do that is in edit mode, I'm going to select this object here, and I've got one object there, I've got a set of objects here, a set of objects here, and a set of, well, control points I should say, not objects. And I'm going to move them all up. So I'm going to move these up 1 unit, these 2, these 3, and this one 4 units, 4 millimeters. So if I go to view and front view, so I want to move this up 4 millimeters. So 1, I haven't got, yes, sorry, 1, I have 2, 3, 4. I thought I didn't have snap on for a moment there. So that's moved up that one. Now I've got to be careful the control points I select here. I want to select those two at the same time and view it from the front. So move those up 3. 1, 2, 3 millimeters, hopefully. Then I want that one in the corner and this one in the corner here, view and front. And I'm going to move those up 1, 2. Hopefully that's what I've done. And then finally those two there. So the last one I'm not going to move at all. So view and front. And I'm just going to move these ones up 1 unit. And what you find there is if you do that, 4, 3, 2 and 1, you keep it nice and uniform. What I want to do now is if I select all the control points by pressing A on the keyboard, and if I switch off the snap and I just position my ring now, I just try and get that line straight there, I can pull this whole object down now so it just sits on the top of the ring. And we will have to play around with this a little bit because we're going to mirror it to put it on the bottom. Okay, so I had all control points highlighted there to position it. Now press the tab key to come out of edit mode. Now I want to make a mirror copy of this and put it on the bottom. So if we go to modifiers and go to mirror modifier, you see it doesn't quite work at the moment. It's actually Z that I'm going to use, but the reason that it doesn't work is because my centre of gravity is not at the origin. If I look in the main information icon, I've got a value of 5 here. So I want to reset my centre of gravity to be at the origin, and I can do that in a number of different ways. I can do it by doing Control A and apply the location, and when I do that, notice this value sets back to 0. And I've now got my ring at the bottom. Now you may find when you do this, you might have to go back into edit mode and tweak it to get it to fit properly. But I think I've done a pretty reasonable job there. I'm not worried about that bit sticking through there. I mean, I could tidy it up. But it's not actually sticking out of the bottom. So I'm going to leave that as it is. Okay, so there's your third ring tapered. And it's a case then of changing each of these objects into meshes, joining them together, and then exporting them as OBJ files. And then what you must do is go to Netfab Basic and run the repair procedure in Netfab Basic. And these issues here, where the thing is pulling in on itself, Netfab should fix those for you. If it doesn't, you can always go into edit mode here and perhaps delete a control point or just move on around slightly. But if you go to Shapeways, you will find these objects are available there. So good luck in creating your own. Thank you.